I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this. Um, I remember a few years ago, then I thought about it again, and I'm not sure if there is a seventh one. But I remember that I had two problems that were connected for different things. But now I can only see one connection. I can just explain that one. Well, most people there are very concerned with global warming. Uh, but actually, I remember that problem. That's you have two sides of a coin. Then one side of the coin is that the environment, the global environment, is being destroyed. But the other side of the coin is the shrinking oil reserve, and people tend to ignore this problem. I mean, for modern society, the way modern society was created was that uh, that is actually the UK and the US. They found out that they invented the steam engine and found out that you could use oil. Oh yeah, I didn't. I guess I didn't think about this before, but actually, it's funny that like oil is like a personless slave you have that you can exploit. It's like having a slave without having a slave. And actually, that coincided with when they abolished slavery, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, if we don't have oil, then we don't. I mean, maybe we can't have a modern society. And it's one of the. It's actually number one, I think. uh, and like there are many like ideas and proposals for alternatives for oil, but many of them are unsustainable. And uh, I mean, green energy. It's I could talk about just green energy for a long time, but many of their proposals they are unsustainable. For example, electric vehicles with batteries are not they're not, what is it they call it, CO2 neutral. They're not CO2 neutral. Like, do you think a battery is free? Where do you think it comes from? Like, it's mined. There is actually another crisis. It's actually a fossil fuel crisis, or just mineral crisis, you could call it, because it takes so much lithium to make a battery. And, like, for every kilogram of lithium you find, you have to dig, like, 999 kilos of rock that is useless. And the mining industry, it's not green. It's not green. They use uh, diesel engines. Actually, yeah, I just heard. I work with kind of related to construction, and I asked my coworker. Yeah, he was what is that called? He was driving an excavator, and I asked him like, what the fuck? It takes 400 liters of diesel, and then he said, "Yeah, it does. 400 liters of diesel, and that's like, that's kind of what they use to mine. It's not a green industry, and I don't even know how you could make that industry green. I mean, so we can say that's number one. That's the shrinking oil reserve. I'm going to remove the microphone a little bit because I think records better than. The second one. I'm not going to talk about global warming because I'm taking them in order of like how big a crime or how bad it is, I guess. The second one, that's overpopulation and population growth. That's actually before modernity. Then the population was about 1.5 billion, and now we have crossed 8 billion, and it's not going to. I mean, some people they think and they project that the human population will stabilize, but I guess I'm not going to go into why, but like that theory is wrong for several reasons. And actually, you can see selection within populations in the West that are not having like below 2 children. For example, you could one example could be some immigrants. For example, if they are Muslims, generally religious people. That's it's not only Muslims because there are also subpopulations of Christians and Jews that have many children. Also in the West, where they are a minority. So it's not only Muslims like other ones, and actually Middle Eastern countries they don't have that many children. It's about 2 or 3 per woman now on average, but in the West then it's 1.5. So that's it's bad economically at least. But yeah, that's a problem. I think it's more solvable than the shrinking oil reserve because oil you can't. I mean, there's no way to make oil. Once it's burned, it's gone. But you could regulate population politically. So I think for that reason, it's not that bad. But I think it's going to be really bad because since I think modernity will end, then maybe 6 billion people will die because after there is no oil left, so we can't generate. One reason because of modernity and that we use diesel in tractors to generate a higher output of crops. That's how we can have that many people. But once that's gone, then the people will be gone. So it's really bad. Yeah, that's the worst aspect of this. And the other bad aspect is that it's probably irreversible. So when modernity is gone, then it won't come back. So and it's not like it's not. I don't like it. I mean, it's not. I'm not a primitivist. I like modern life. Yeah, but it is a problem, and it's. Oh yeah, actually, I remember the other kind of overpopulation, and that's not on the list. It's controversial, but actually, the most developed places and the most modern society also have the smartest people. So that would be Europeans and East Asians. And they have the fewest number of children. I'm talking about global IQ distributions. And then you could say middle IQ level, that would be, for example, the Middle East. And they also have like middle number of children uh, and other places. There are other places like North Africa, for example, and some places in South Asia. And South America, uh, it is a different point, but now I just forgot it before. That's the other kind of overpopulation. It is that it's called, the world is, the selection in the world globally is dysgenic because the people that are selected for are counterproductive to a modern civilization. Because, I mean, dumb people, they're not going to create cars that fly. And the lowest IQ on average, that's for sub-Saharan Africa. And they are some places in sub-Saharan Africa, the average amount of children is like 6 per woman. So that's like normal human reproduction. It's actually just ours that is lower than normal. Okay, so now we are 3. I can really sense that I'm not used to like thinking and talking this much anymore. It was something I did when I was younger, thinking a lot. Okay, the next one, it's I guess it's the most complicated. I don't know. It's not intuitive to understand. But another thing that most people don't know is that there is a global debt crisis. And it's, for example, the United States. Let me just see what it is. I know it says only gone up. US debt. I think it's like $30 trillion now. 30 trillion. Let me see. When I looked into it, oh yeah, 35 trillion. And when I looked into this and got worried, then it was at about 22, I think. Oh my god, that's so crazy. So $35 trillion, trillion, and that's not, it's not the old British way. It's 20. What is that? Yeah, 12 zeros, 34, and then 12 zeros. That much money. I looked into when it was 22 billion. I looked into it for the US, even pay the what is that called? I don't even. Oh yeah, I do remember in Danish. Rente. What is that? Only to pay like if you have a debt, then you pay a certain percentage every year just to pay that percentage. I know more about finances in English because like it's better to speak English. The annual payback. Yeah, the annual payback, that would be just to pay the annual payback of the loan. That would be, or the debt, global, the national debt in the US. That would take so much money that the US would have to abolish their military. That it's that much that. Oh my God, I'm a retard speaker right now. And it's not only the US. Like I looked into it. I know like when I looked into it, then I knew like for a lot of countries. I know for example that the UK. I guess maybe it's just England has a huge debt as well. One way you measure it is debt to GDP, and you want to be maybe below 50%. 8% or something. But let me see. The UK, it's also high. Debt to GDP. Let me see what it is now. Oh yeah, it's 85% of the growth domestic product. For example, Germany, it went down actually. You can just look at it. But many countries have problems with this. It's actually countries that mostly it's the countries that industrialized first, because it's a pretty, like, I don't know how much you know about economics, but mostly the ones who industrialized first, they want to maintain an image of growth, and it has a lot to do with democracy as well, because the one who wants to like make healthcare worse, you wouldn't vote for him. But that's actually the way you like decrease the debt. It is to spend less money. And actually, when you have, that's a fun, like, I don't know, I don't want to like explain it too complicated. But actually, if a country has debt, then it's like, the parents and grandparents saying "fuck you" to the next generation, because they're going to pay off that debt. But it has to actually, it also has a lot to do with the shrinking oil reserve, or you could say it's because, like, we have, I think in the West, and now we have the maximum growth you can create with oil. So we are actually not growing economies anymore. We are just stable economies. Most of the growth is on par with inflation. So that's not growth. And yeah, it's a pretty complicated, but it has a lot to do with maybe in the past, and money, it was backed by gold. You had a gold standard. But now we have something, it's called fiat currency, where it's just numbers on a computer. And that's another reason why it can happen. Because, for example, let's say the United States is 100%. Let's say it owes $100 billion to China. Then China can also owe $100 billion to the US, and then it's like zero sum debt. Like, because it's like all of it. It is fiat. That's the correct word. Like, it's fake money, you could say. But I think I don't blame them for making it fiat, because the global economy was so large that there wasn't enough gold to use gold anymore. But we have a lot of, and that debt crisis, it's going to, like, the problem with it is that, like, the next financial crisis, it's going to be so bad. It's not just like, normally it's a bit kind of a business cycle, or you could say, yeah, normally it works differently. Uh, but it's not going to work the same this time. I don't know how to, like, this is too long. It should be like pretty short points, but it's I think it's because it's the most complicated, so I can't really explain it without going on tangents all the time. And I don't know, I wouldn't blame you if you don't understand this one. Maybe you understand it. Like, debt is bad, at least. uh, Yeah, it will be such a. It's because next financial crisis that will happen, then some countries they will default on their national debt, uh, and yeah, it's going to be a mess. Another thing, I thought about a new thing actually. Like it was only I don't know the last few years after the invasion of Ukraine happened. I thought a lot about global trade because there are so many countries that are completely reliant on global trade, like Egypt. Egypt it imports uh, more than half of all the food is imported. Like, so what would happen if global trade shut down? Then half of Egypt would die of starvation, or more than half. And it's like the U.S. versus China that's the problem here, and a lot of this stuff it leads to war because yeah, point seven that would be point six is nuclear war here, but I'm not going to explain it right now. But Russia, it relies a lot on oil, and it has nuclear weapons. So what happens with Russia when they have nuclear weapons and no oil? But it's actually not it's only 15% of their GDP, so it's actually not that bad. Uh, but many places in Africa, they or the Middle East, if there was no oil, then the only thing they could do is go to war because that's their what is it, bread and butter, you know. I don't know. I need the next point. Next one, please. Okay. So I already had four, so I don't need to be like a racist, controversial racist anymore. But that would be number five. I can number four. I can explain. Like we are not even at global warming yet. I can explain why it's four. It's because if you have global dysgenics and you like if the humans that are you could say how I define eugenics would be a eugenic I, the eugenic population or global population in this case would be humans that are the most able to selecting for humans that are the most able to create a modern society. You would say it like that, and it's like I mean then it's not because because I'm not that I mean, then it's not just because. Then I'm not just saying it's because like white people are superior or something like some racist stuff. You could just say the humans that are uh, the most capable, selecting for humans that are the most capable of creating a modern society, and that would be intelligent people, for example. Actually, that's the most important attribute. It would be someone who is intelligent and law abiding, someone like that. And I mean, you can create uh, you can find data that suggests that like white people and East Asians are better at that, living in a society and being law abiding and like also having high skilled jobs, something like that. But that's the problem with it is that why it's ranked higher than why it's ranked so high is because once you have a dysgenic global population, then it takes a long time to like change it back. You can't change it back easily. Like humans, like a human behavioral traits, it takes a long time. For example, one theory, I can just say one thing about it. One theory of why Europeans are pretty law abiding, it is that in the Middle Ages, Europe was actually pretty civilized compared to many places. And they had some kind of rule of law, which was that if you did something wrong, then you were like decapitated. So psychopathic men and people with those traits, they were selected against, and that's actually eugenics. There are several other reasons. For example, yeah, it takes a long time, but some think that why Northern Europe was so successful technologically compared to Southern Europe, it was that priests were allowed to marry. So yeah, and for East Asia, you could make a theory because society was very like it's really pretty complicated societies, and with a clear hierarchy and a lot of rules to follow. And that's a place where a law abiding and smart person would do well. So that's one, maybe that could be a reason why they are smart. But at least I know it takes a long time. For example, if it's just genic and then our IQ falls to 80 on the global average, then it would take a long time to increase it. And you would have to make an environment where you select for smart people like other ones. That's actually about biology, but yeah, it's high because it takes a long time to like harness traits that would be good in a modern society again. Okay, now five. Everyone's favorite. Uh, yeah, that's global warming. Uh, it's not like I think it's a problem too, actually, but I just think other ones are greater. I can explain why. I mean, number two, that was overpopulation. Uh, One reason why it's lower than most people would put it, that's because if we could solve the overpopulation problem, then it's actually like we could kind of negate the global warming problem. Uh, Actually, I'm not sure if I called it global warming before because there's also a global ecological crisis, you could say, about like different species of animals that die. And actually, the ones who are worried about global warming, there's no way to solve the problem of uh, species, other species going extinct, without solving the overpopulation problem. For example, I live in Denmark, and Denmark has almost no nature, because all the places are used for farming. Like it's cultivated land. It's not nature. And overfishing, for example, if you had a shrinking population, world population, then that could also solve. Uh, I don't know if it's called overfishing, like fishing too much, fishing unsustainably. Uh, yeah, but global warming is a problem, but if we had fewer people, then we would also need less area to live on. So let's say this. Let's say I think that's true that the sea levels will rise, and I also think it's true that the climate in many places are going to get worse. Uh, but if we had a shrinking global population and we needed, we were like, let's say we were 3 billion, like we became 3 billion again. I'm not sure what my number is. I thought about 1 billion, but maybe two is okay. I don't really know. I think the Earth without modernity could support about 1.5 billion. That's what the global population was. I already said it in about 1850, before industrialization. Uh, yeah, so we wouldn't need. So maybe we didn't even need like all of Africa. We wouldn't need, for example. And like humans also live like weird, really weird places, islands that are far away. For example, Greenland is so far away they couldn't survive without Denmark trading and sending. I mean, they couldn't survive on their own. Not anymore. Some places we should leave, I think, and that would be one of them because it's just, yeah, it's just. It's not a good environment to live. I mean, many places are like that. So we wouldn't, for example, if it got hotter around the equator, then everyone could move north and south. That's kind of why I don't think that much about it. But it will it will affect many places. It already does. I heard Somalia. It didn't. Somalia it has had drought for 3 years now. 3 years. 3 years the crops have failed now in Somalia. So yeah, it is a problem. I don't think it's not a hoax. I mean, it's really stupid to think it's a hoax. It just ranks lower than, I don't know, maybe the debt crisis is put in the wrong place. I'm not sure. It's three. But the biggest two I see, that's the mineral crisis, because I'm counting both oil and metals. Now, I didn't do that when I was younger, when I looked into it. And overpopulation, that's the greatest too. It will be a shit show. Yeah, but that's global warming. I know people they know. I don't even know if they know a lot about it because much they think is wrong. For example, I think what is that? A wind turbine. It also uses a lot of metals. I could just say my rank. Like the best one, it's nuclear energy. They say it's not renewable, but so is the other ones are not renewable either. Like, yeah, the Earth is not renewable. Like, and they actually under researched it because they only use uranium, but there are other types of uh, Uh, there are other types of uh, there are other types of metals you could use that instead of uranium. Then there are other radioactive metals you could use, and they didn't research is enough. I think, yeah, there are other metals that you could use. It's not only uranium. Okay, that would be the best one. The other one is something called geothermia. Geothermia is using the heat of the earth, and that's what they do in Iceland. There is a problem uh, digging this deep, but I think again it's so underfunded because like the earth is also going to be hot for hundreds of billions of years. And then they can say, the wind energy and solar, it's renewable. But no, the minerals are not renewable, idiot. You're digging it up. It's not renewable. Yeah, they're not the next ones. The next one is hydro. What is that? Hydro. I mean, using running water. I think it's also just called hydro. That's the third. I don't even what. That's the only three good ones. Solar and wind turbines. They're not that good because of all the minerals you need, and they return. And solar it also takes up a lot of land, and wind energy it only works when there's a lot of wind. So they're not as stable energy sources as all the other three ones. I mean, the water runs all the time. Nuclear reactor, it's radioactive all the time and creates heat. And like the Earth is not, it's not getting cold in the night and hot in the morning, like not deep down in the ground. So yeah, they're more stable as well. And that's something that everyone misunderstands about about it. Yeah, that's enough now. I think maybe you fell asleep. I don't know. Okay, so now we are missing two. Yeah, the next one it's nuclear war. Actually, it wasn't going to be. I mean, I remember it wasn't one of them in the past. That wasn't the one. That was the one I didn't have. I had six before. Uh, I don't know what to say about it. I mean, it has been. Yeah, it has been that way for a long time now. Ever since the Cold War. But yeah, there's one thing that people don't know about this. Actually, nuclear weapons also prevent wars. For example, the US and Russia would be in a war. I guess now, actually, if it wasn't for nuclear weapons. Uh, so, yeah, like many. I think the whole. Everything would have gone differently if there weren't nuclear weapons. I don't know. I don't really know what to say about this. It's not something I studied very much. Uh, I don't know, but sometimes less weapons doesn't mean peace. It's actually more weapons. Uh, let's say we have two countries, country A and country B, and both of them have 100,000 soldiers. Then it would be stupid for either of them to go to war. And let's say that one of the countries, country A, is going leftist, and then they think, oh, we want peace. Then they decrease their military, and they have only 50,000. So country B that has 100,000 could take over country A. So it's actually like it's more balance of power. And nuclear, yeah, they call it nuclear deterrence. It also works kind of like that. I don't know. Yeah, that's it about nuclear weapons, I guess. Because we know we both know why it's dangerous, and I think nuclear weapons, it could not destroy. Yeah, that's one thing I could say. It can't destroy humanity. I mean, we won't go extinct, but I think that if we had a nuclear war, then I think it would be like the overpopulation collapse we will see in the future, where billions of people will die. I think a nuclear war could do the same thing, and it's I don't know. Mostly, I guess it's not ranked higher because most the country that uses nuclear weapons is it's suicidal because other countries are going to bomb them. And I mean, there are only two countries that are really threatening here, and that's the US and Russia. Uh, you could tie this into the number one, which is the shrinking oil problem crisis. Oh, what was it I called it? Yeah. Mineral crisis. Yeah, I just renamed it mineral crisis. But actually, I didn't know about Russia's. It's only 15% of its GDP that's from oil. So it's actually false. There was some American quote unquote diplomat who said that Russia is basically an oil station masking as a country, but that's not. At least that's not true anymore. Like 15, it's not that much. Like for Saudi Arabia, it's 70% of GDP, I think, something around that number. That's an oil station masking as a country. Uh, I'm not sure that nuclear war will. Yeah, I think actually this ties together because I think some countries will start a war when they run out of oil, and some of them could be nuclear. Uh, I think I think so. At least it's going to start a lot of wars. I know that's for sure. Whether it's nuclear, I don't know. Okay, now seven. I don't know. Seven is pretty different, but it is related to some of them. It's about technological decline. Uh, uh, Actually, when you look into it, this one is also pretty complicated, and my ideas are not fleshed out completely because it relies on some understanding, some. It relies on some. I mean, you need to define terms to understand it. It's mostly when you look at technological progress that has happened since, I don't know, maybe the 80s, maybe before actually, maybe it's all the way back to the 60s. Most of it is information technology. Most of it is spillover effects of information technological development. And what I mean is computers, that's what I mean. But what is hard to explain is that what is hard to explain is what is and what what is creating a new technology and what is merely in uh, innovation. So you could say it's a question of qualitative difference versus quantitative, I guess. Yeah, something like that. For example, one first the computer, the last technological development was the computer, and it has improved many areas. One thing in particular I can think of is the medical industry, because now they have a lot of tools that they didn't have before because of the computer. Uh, but there has been no, I don't think there has been no, any, I guess one you could say, I mean, the one that is most different is the internet, I think. It's a pretty hard one. It can have some effects on the other ones. Yeah, for example, if you take global warming, then the right, I think either people on the right, they will often, or they can say it's a hoax, and many of them have the solution of technological development that will solve the problem. Uh, as at least that's what they say. But I don't think it will be true. It's true. It can continue. I think there is a hard limit on technology, how much it can improve. It has. It does relate to some of the debt crisis is because growth has stopped, economical growth in the first world. It's not only the West. For example, Japan has a lot of debt as well, and China also. China is not as, I mean, it's not as successful as they say it is if you look into it. Not anymore. It stopped. I don't know, maybe actually 15 years ago or something like that. It ties into some of the other ones. Also, overpopulation. Like, if you could have a method for creating more food, then we could forego the crisis of lack of food. It will be food that is the main crisis in the long and short. I mean, but it's a pretty, at least as complicated as the global economical crisis as a point. And it's the last because it's the maybe it shouldn't be on the list. It's not really a crisis as such. It's just something I realized. I used to be a lot into science and technology and stuff like that. Then I learned about that we actually didn't invent that much uh, for a long time. All of it is spillover effects from inventing the computer. Oh yeah, another one is that it has actually technological development has made us be able to use more oil reserves also. So it also relates to that, but that won't continue either. Uh, for example, the U.S. it produces a lot of oil now. It's one of the biggest producers of oil, but that's only because of a new technology, fracking. It's called. It's a new kind of way to get oil, but it's only viable now because there are different ways to measure the oil reserve. And one of the ways is return on investment. Like if you for like how much does a barrel of oil cost not to sell but to create? And that has gone up. Like before then it started with $1 or something like that. Without inflation. Like it's not like I mean you don't count you count count inflation, so it's $1 now, and now it costs. It's only viable if it's a barrel. A barrel from fracking it costs $15 or something like that, and in Saudi Arabia it costs $5. But it's always going up because the longer we the longer we pump out oil and find oil and refine oil, the more expensive the oil will be, not to sell but to produce, and that cost has gone up. Now it's, I guess, on average maybe $10. And remember, it was $1 once, so it's already 10 times more expensive. And at some point, the price will be so high that it's not viable. Maybe when it's about 50, then you might as well not refine oil and find it and dig it out. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Something I used to think about a lot, but I can't really think about it all day. But I thought about it for, I don't know. I think I spent a year just thinking about this stuff. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to make him write them in order.